Welcome to Johnny's Tips and Tricks, and I'm going to show you guys how to fix any small engine. As far as, when you're having problems pulling the string, whether it's on a lawnmower or a wood chipper or a log splitter or your weed whacker, pretty much anything that you have to pull string on. They have like these very simple carburetors in them. And if you find yourself that you have to pull more than, 2-3 times to get the damn thing started, most likely you have gunk in the carburetor. All right, so I have a weed whacker that won't start, and we got to clean the carburetor in order to get this thing going. So I'll show you what to do. It literally only takes 20 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes of your time, and you're good for the season. All right, so you don't want to be out there just tugging, getting out of breath, stopping, breathing, tugging, and finally getting it started. You have gunk in the carburetor. 20-30 minutes and you're good to go. So this is what you do. All right, so the carburetor is going to be back here behind the air filter. So what we're going to do is we're going to take it apart, take the carburetor out, clean it. Need a knife?
Oh, it's all right there.
Looks like that whole cover is being held on by those 2 screws.
Yeah.
All right, so the 2 screws he's just removing, they do 2 things. They hold that cover on, and they actually hold the carburetor in place. All right, so now we're just gonna pry the carburetor off of where it's seated from. And then what we're gonna do is disconnect 3 things: the throttle cable and 2 fuel lines. So taking off the throttle cable. All right, so this thing should have about 5 screws that you have to take off, 2 at the top, 2 at the bottom, and then 1 inside. When you get on the inside, make sure you take a picture of how the float and everything, you'll see the float in a minute, how all that is put together so you don't forget. It's very simple, but if you put it, just take a picture. All right, so he's going to be using a knife to try to pop this lid off. There's a gasket under there. Be very careful. Do not mess up the gasket. Probably the hardest part of the whole thing is getting this lid off without damaging the gasket.
Just like glued it on one side. Here extremely well on the other.
So what are you looking at?
Just the inside of the carburetor. Here is your float device that turns on and off the fuel. It's usually got a cut button there, and this one's a little bit different. We're going to take apart that assembly and then blow air through it to make sure we get all the gunk out of it.
That assembly's just held in by that 1 screw?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so basically what just fell out right now is a spring, and he's going to remove all the moving parts of the float, which is like 4 or 5 things.
And then you're going to watch for your float. We're going to take this apart to get that cleared out of there too. Do some fuel on this now. That comes off. That comes off. We have just the carburetor left.
So once this is all apart, basically all we're going to do is take our carb cleaner and blow through all the holes.
And some air.
And some air. All right, so as soon as he's finished cleaning the gunk and the grime off, we're gonna go ahead and grab the compressor and we're gonna blow air through every single hole that we can find in this in order to get any residual gunk in there out.
So this is the bottom side of your carburetor. This is where your float sits at. That's the main injection port. Usually when that gets clogged is when your small piece of equipment won't start. So you want to make sure you push some air through there to get the debris out. And you can push air through any other portholes that you see. And you can see that there's buildup on the inside of the fuel inlet line here. That'll just get into there and jam up your float from working properly. So you just push air through that, and you pop open your carburetor, you push air through wherever you can push air through. And that should usually clean up most of the issues you have with these little carburetors. You can see a lot of the buildups going out of the fuel line there, and you wouldn't be able to see none of the other stuff, but it's all blown inside the carburetor and blown through.
All right, so we're gonna hit it with the carb cleaner one more time and then hit it with the air one more time just to dry it off, and then we'll install it.
There is a screen right over here. You just want to make sure you blow that off right quick when you're done.
All right, so we'll put it back together and we'll see how it runs. All right, so there you go. Now, if you put it back together and you're leaking, you probably didn't put the movable parts in correctly or lined them up right. So just be careful for that. All right, so subscribe to the channel. This is Johnny's Tips and Tricks. And if this helped you out, hit the like button. That helps me out, and I hope this helps.